What's on the silver screen? I got some takes you wouldn't believe. Popmosis Film.
Hi, welcome to Popmosis Film. This is Paul, and I have with me Tyler and Josiah. How are you guys doing today?
We are good. Speaking for Tyler, we are good.
We are good.
The royal we?
We are
collective
good.
Yeah, how was your Comic-Con at home? Was it a good experience? Did you guys get any good exclusives or anything?
You know, I only got bumped into a couple of times. Waiting for the bathroom was pretty terrible. And you know, I didn't get into all the panels that I wanted to get into, but for some strange reason, I got into all the Hall H panels. So, you know, there's not really much to complain about. I'm just kidding. No, it was fine. And you can also listen to all of our other bonus panel discussions that we've had. I think we've had 3 of them. But no, it was great. You know, unnecessary debates numbers were fine. I feel like this was a necessary evil, and not really evil. I'm happy with how Comic-Con was, and for them to have it virtually, I think it's a good idea, and hopefully we may see it more in the future as well as have like the normal convention.
All right. And how about you, Josiah?
Yeah, it was all right. I mean, it's like the best of a bad situation kind of thing, and it just kind of keeps it in the consciousness because you know. You were still talking about Comic-Con and Judy, and it was a lot of reminiscing about Comic-Con and stuff, which I think is really what their goal was, just to keep that, you know, that you care that this is the time of year Comic-Con, whether or not you're going there or not. So I didn't get to sort of dabble in much of it just because of children, which ironically would have been probably the problem at Comic-Con because I would have probably like, oh, we have to leave early because of the kid kind of thing. But still, I enjoyed it. I got 2 exclusives, and so
what'd you get?
From one, Super 7 had a Nightmare Before Christmas like figure set of glow in the dark Jack and Sally. So that's all.
Nice.
I never liked or understood the whole thing with Super 7. I have so many friends who love Super 7 stuff, and I don't like it, and I love
their stuff.
I don't know what it is. I just can't get into it. Man, I'm just weird. I'm the minority on that one. I know so many people, and I'm just the grump who doesn't, I guess.
I love it. I'm into their Ultimates line now, and
I think they're doing Thundercats too.
They're doing Thundercats. Oh, yeah. Ironically, so speaking of Super 7, though, they're not perfect, and I'm really upset with them. So we lived in a different place, which we sold at the beginning of this year. After that happened, or right around before we sold it, actually, right at the time we were selling it, they were shipping the Masters of the Universe based on the movie version. They were shipping those, right? And I was super excited to get those. They sent them to the old address. Fortunately, we hadn't sold it yet. So Judy, my wife, emailed them, oh, fix the address. We've got to get it to the right address. They said, no problem, we'll do it. We can't change that address, though, for that one. That's already shipped. Like, okay. So today she got a notification that Ninja Turtles Wave 1 is shipping to the old address, which we haven't lived at since last November. We don't own anymore. Yeah, so that's great. But
that sucks.
Maybe I'm going to dislike Super 7 slightly more. But I like their stuff, so I'll say that. They hooked me when they did the Aliens line, or the Alien line, rather.
Oh, the reaction?
The reaction. I really didn't like a lot of the reaction figures that have come since then, for the most part, but I liked that one. And the Jack and Skellington and Sally are like glow in the dark ones, and that's like Penny's favorite movie, so it's kind of why we got that. So
that's awesome.
That was it.
Yeah, I just got my Dragon Ball Z exclusives I get every year.
Oh, cool.
Oh, the SH figure arts.
Yeah.
Nice.
I don't know if you guys have been over in a long time, or Josiah, have you ever been to my place before?
I've never been to.
Oh yeah, I have a shit ton of SH fig arts. That's like the only thing that I like collect.
What we see is we don't like what we see on the Skype is a simulation. Really, there's just a brain, like a giant brain that shoots out like Grand Geekery, you know, a Popmosis Film episode, just like comes out of a pneumatic tube. You know, you send out all the different like Hitman, you know, Twitch, like. But yeah, this is all simulation that we kind of experience.
Right.
But the main reason why I bring Comic-Con at home is because there's one panel that I looked forward to, and I watch it in its entirety, and it's Bill and Ted Face the Music, which is a movie that I'm really, really excited to watch. And it's actually one of the first movies that are coming out in theaters, I believe, September 1st or end of August. So I thought it'd be a great time.
What about Tenet? I'm just kidding.
Oh, Tenet?
I'm just joking.
Who knows?
I was a joke.
Who knows when that's
I
gonna
don't
come
care.
out?
You know what? Honestly, I kind of want Tenet to never come out just so Christopher Nolan can just be bitching and moaning all the time.
Yeah. But so the movie we watched is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, which is, I believe, an amazing film that really holds up all this time. And it's one of those, it's like one of those lightning in a bottle movies that like really stands the test of time. And it's you could just revisit it time and time again, and like have your kids watch it. So first, I want to actually go to the production information, and so hit it, Josiah.
So first of all, man, this is perfect Super 7 property right here. Where are the reaction figures for this one, Super 7? Right, that's one line of toys we need. So Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was released on February 17th, 1989. So interesting enough, the movie was actually shot in 87 and was meant to be released in 88. But the original financiers, a production company, they went bankrupt or something, and it was sold off. So that's why the movie, it has a little tag on there that says 1988, and they refer to it as being 1988 within the movie, even though it came out in 89. And it's just because the change in whoever then bought the other rights out, the original distributor, it was intended to be released the previous year. So just a weird circumstance that kind of weirdly work for a time travel movie that is a year out of date when it's released, interestingly enough. So it is directed by Stephen Herrick, who started with Critters, and he's done a lot of like movies in this era that were like significant to me, like Mighty Ducks, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead. His sort of more grown-up one, Mr. Holland's Opus. When I was in high school, that was like a movie that a lot of people liked that I didn't whatsoever.
I was gonna say
I hated it, but it was like one of those things that like friends of mine who were like in band and music stuff, they were really into this movie. And I was in drama and stuff. I wasn't in band, but I was in drama and stuff. So I was in that world. I hated the movie. Hated that movie. But I like the other movies that I mentioned. So recently he's worked on MacGyver and more television stuff. It was written by Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon. Chris Matheson, son of Richard Matheson, writer of I Am Legend. I thought that was the most interesting thing in the world, to be your father's, the I Am Legend guy. I've read a lot of Richard Matheson stuff. So
I still like I Am Legend. Like, I know it's not like the movie and the book. Like, I still like them a lot. Just, I know a lot of people shit on them.
There's not a version of it that I dislike. That's the thing. It's one of those things where it's just an interesting premise, so therefore the movie's always at least interesting. Not necessarily great, but interesting and worth watching. For a future episode, we do the variations on.
We should watch Omega Man.
Legend, Omega Man, The Last Man on Earth, the Vincent Price one. Yeah. So, moving on from Richard Matheson, who has no involvement in this movie other than his kid, it was written by also Ed Solomon. So Ed Solomon, a lot of stuff. Super Mario Brothers movie, which is a bad movie that I like from being a kid. He started out on Laverne and Shirley, and probably what he's most famous for recently, and then before that, Now You See Me, the Magic movies, and before that, though, Men in Black. So Men in Black was his big, and that was a big, big movie for me, just personally at the time. It's not one that's kind of stayed with me, but in the mid, 97, 98 that came out, that was a big movie for me. So it stars Keanu Reeves as Ted, Fedor, Logan, Alex Winter as Bill, as Preston, Esquire. Now I realize, wait.
What is with the Esquire? Is it just because is it funny or is it just
he's a legal assistant or something?
He's just stupid, but in a positive and fun way, I guess. I don't know. But as a kid, it was amazing. That's all I know. And George Carlin as Rufus. And it's funny thinking of George Carlin because this and Thomas the Tank Engine was my first impression of George Carlin. And it's so different than his stand-up.
Yeah.
And then later on, I'm like, that's the same guy. That's Thomas the Tank Engine guy. And that's Rufus from Bill and Ted.
It's also weird because I haven't disclosed this yet to you guys. This is my first time watching this film. I had never seen this film before.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Well, when we were talking about it, I didn't want to say anything until recording. I've never seen any of these films before, nor the TV show. Nothing. I've never seen anything Bill and Ted. I've only heard and seen clips and everything. But it was weird because for some reason there was some facts and stuff that I had known prior. Like I knew that, oh my God, we just said his name. Why am I blanking?
George Carlin.
George Carlin. George Carlin wasn't supposed to be in this film. Apparently, they really like they were gunning for Mr. Connery, for Sean Connery, to be his character.
Oh.
That was
Yeah, I heard that too, and I heard they also were going for Eddie Van Halen. Like that was going to be like a joke within the movie.
Because they always want him as part of the band.
Because then at the end, Rufus like wails on the guitar. You know, he's really good.
Yeah,
that would have been hilarious if they're like, we want Eddie Van Halen in the band, and then it's like they don't even realize that it's the guy is Eddie.
Yeah. But like,
I did read the Sean Connery thing. So.
I knew about that before, for years ago, for some strange reason, because I think we were talking. Because I think they approached him, and Sean Connery was just like, no, like just straight up, like because at the time, especially around that time, he would do anything. I mean, hell, that he would remake an entire James Bond movie horribly in America. Just to get.
I know the writer of that.
Oh,
well,
Jesus.
He's passed away now.
Oh, wow.
So Tyler, I'm wondering with this movie how it's like cultural phenomenon, right?
Yeah.
Does it live up to that reputation in your eyes?
Okay. So I have a lot of opinions on this film. I didn't watch it because of like the normal stuff where I'm just kind of like, I'm not going to watch this movie because it's overloved and stuff like that. I just didn't have interest in it, to be honest. I don't like 80s movies that much. Like they have to be just superb for me to like them. There's very few 80 comedy movies that I like Beverly Hills Cop, and really that's the only thing I can think of that I actually like. The 80s,
it's the only movie that matters from the 1980s. Beverly Hills Cop.
Well, no, for comedies, sci-fi, like, oh my god, the 80s fucking rocked that. Especially 1982, which is what we talked about during the Blade Runner episode.
At length. Episode, which
comes
is actually coming in the future.
Yeah, which is coming in future. We recorded
this is our time travel episode.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Oh, that's right. We haven't released that yet. We did that like months ago. It's bizarre.
Well,
teaser. It's a
teaser. But the 80s is just a decade that I'm sorry, and I forgot I love Better Off Dead, but I don't know why, but I do love it. But
fantastic. That's why.
I love Better Off Dead. I didn't care for this film. I'm also not even the biggest fan of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but this movie has charm, and I will definitely talk about that a lot, later on. But going into this movie, I expected to really not like it, maybe chuckle a couple times. I didn't laugh at all during this film, but my heart did sink, and I did get emotional, especially at the end, because even though they're the two dumbest characters, and there's a lot of those movies where like the characters are just so like I'm not a fan of Dumb and Dumber at all. I don't like them. I don't like the characters. They're not relatable at all. They're just too stupid, and it drives me crazy. And like Napoleon Dynamite, same thing. Every character I fucking hate because they're just so stupid and unrelatable, and I don't care about them. I want them all to fail. And yeah, same thing with Dumb and Dumber, Nacho Libre, and a bunch of other movies. I feel like if the characters are just not relatable and if they're just too stupid, I don't care, and I want them to fail. And if they fail, then I feel better as a human being.
So did you think Bill and Ted were too stupid?
So this movie, no. I actually, at the end, very much like them. They grew, and I don't know what it was, but it was a part where like clicked for me, which was when Bill treated his stepmom as mom, and he like, because at first you meet him and he's like over sexualizing her, and then he like, when she's with them and she's in the car and he like calls her mom, and it's like this really nice little moment. That was kind of like this one like moment where I kind of was like, oh, I actually like really like these characters, and they're really dumb, but they're sweet, and they actually did grow. And no, so I guess like after that whole spiel or TED Talk, I like Bill and Ted. I like them as characters. They grew. They are relatable, and yes, they're so dumb, but the thing is that like I think this movie, which barely had a budget and almost wasn't made, and definitely was not like this. It was a miracle that this thing got distributed. Like let's just say, like it was a miracle.
Sure.
Like this almost did not see the light of day, and the fact that like big budget movies like Napoleon Dynamite or Dumb and Dumber and a few other films that I can't think of at the top of my head to have like these stupid characters that are just so beloved and have like these millions of dollars and these amazing actors playing these like Jeff Daniels is one of the greatest living actors right now. Like the man is seriously one of the best actors, and the fact that he's in Dumb and Dumber actually insults me. Like, and I actually feel insulted with the fact that he wasted his talent being in that film. That's maybe that film also made his career, but still, it's like the weirdest thing to me. Where this movie, I love everybody in it, and it took me a while, maybe 30 minutes into the movie, to actually like it. I think it was whenever Napoleon stopped being so annoying, I guess. Like, maybe it was like the bowling alley. I think that's when I started liking the film, was around the bowling alley.
Nice. And yeah, that's what I love about those characters. Bill and Ted, there's a lot of sincerity about them, and they're very like innocent. And I really like how they like talk to everybody the same.
Yes.
Like Bogus Journey, they talk to God. Abraham Lincoln, just the same. They act the same way. They're like, party on, dude.
Yeah.
Be excellent to each other. And there's like something very endearing about that. And it's funny, Napoleon, I really like Napoleon's like while they're doing time travel, while they're traveling through time and getting all the historical figures like Beethoven, you have little parts with Deacon and Napoleon, and they have like the Ziggy Piggy, and just like seeing his reaction, like the fish out of water of like Napoleon in like an ice cream shop, or like in the bowling alley when he like, strikes out, has a gutter ball, and he's like, murder. He's just like shit.
Yeah.
To me, it wasn't even that. It was the fact that like he understood the rules and the scoring, and he was just so mad at Deacon. Like it was like that moment where he's putting the points, and I'm like, okay, he understands the game now, and then he's just looking at Deacon like he just wants to murder him because he's just annihilating him. Yeah,
I particularly love the moment with Socrates Johnson.
Oh my god!
Where they're in ancient Greece, and he goes, "All we are is dust in the wind."
Yeah.
And like Socrates or Socrates, he actually like freaks out. He's like, "Oh!" And he like, and they just pull him in the phone booth.
And he just like goes, yeah. I love that part because he's just like, it's just so short. And he's like, yeah, just like you blew my mind. Or quoting Kansas.
Or I just love that Socrates and Billy the Kid become best friends like in like 5 seconds, like two, like that's the thing is like this movie, and I went back and rewatched it too because it is so short, and I was working. Like I was so not really bored, just really getting ready to be disappointed and to really just hate my time with it, like I have with other movies that I have named multiple times, that are so beloved and just are people being too stupid. Like I feel like that there's a way to play stupid and and for me to enjoy the film. Like I would say the Marx Brothers are perfect because yes, they're all really, really, really dumb, but when you have like the fourth wall humor, or like there's a way for you to present the jokes and to set up the jokes to where like, yes, the characters are dumb as hell. However, like the situation isn't, where I would say the Farley brothers just like almost like I maybe like 2 of their films, and it's just this hammer and this nail, and they just keep hammering this nail, and then they won't stop until like the whole board is like broken in half, and they're just like keep hitting it. And it's Bill and Ted, like again, like you said, they talk to everybody exactly the same, which is what I love, because it's like the sweetest thing, but they treat everybody differently, but they treat situations differently. And to me, that's what I actually really, really, really like. And it's a little bit of that innocence, I guess, and where the other characters are so chaotic, but Bill and Ted are just like, I don't really care. I just want to get an A. I don't want to go. I don't want my dad to send me away. Like the only drive is for like, they don't care about history. They don't care about the lives that they're affecting. They just don't want Ted to be sent away. And like I love the fact also about this film about like how rock and roll is the biggest thing, but they don't know how to play rock like anything. Like that is like one of my favorite like ongoing jokes of the film, and with the best payoff at the end where it is just George Carlin riffing, and then you're just like, this is their moment. They're just gonna play and it's gonna be magical, and then they're just bad. I don't know. It was like I felt like all the jokes that they set up in this film had a punchline, and it hit really, really, really well, even though it's ridiculous. Like Mozart, like just playing and being taken away, and then him just rocking out the mall, and then like at the end they're talking about like, or like, you know, where I think like somebody says off campus like, was he, oh, I didn't know Mozart's favorite song was like from this blank band from the 70s or something like that, like it was like some left-hand comment, and it was just brilliant.
I'm glad you really enjoyed it, especially you know, seeing it for the first time, and I'm really glad that it lived up to your expectations. So Josiah, what is a character moment that you really loved about the movie? What really struck a chord?
I'm not gonna answer your question because I want to kind of go off a little bit. We can come back to that, but I want to go off a little bit of what Tyler said, just from a different perspective. Now, I still enjoy the movie very much, but I saw this movie in the theater in 1989. So I remember specifically, we didn't go to a lot of movies at this point. My mom and dad took all of us. I am one of 4 boys. I'm the youngest of 4 boys. To the movie theater. We went to Northway Mall near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, North Hills, PA, and the cheap theater was like a second run theater. You know what I mean? And my dad was going to take and go see one movie, and mom was going to go see another, and we got to pick. My dad went and saw No Holds Barred, which is the Hulk Hogan like wrestling movie, which is just awful but borders on so bad it's good kind of thing. And then mom had the option of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and I wanted to see both movies, and obviously since I've seen both, my brother Jake and I went with mom and we saw Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So I saw this in the movie theater at the time, so it was I absolutely loved it because it was, you know, they're older but it's aimed at that. You know, how old was I? I was born in 82, so I was 89, right? So I was a young little almost 8-year-old there. So for that reason, it didn't hold up for me as much as I had not seen it in many, many, many years. And I have seen more recently, and I think Bogus Journey is actually a better film.
That's what I've been told by everybody, that Bogus Journey is definitely the better of the films.
Yeah, and I know I've seen that one more recently. Yeah, and I think that one stands more than this one does. Not that it's a bad movie, but it's a pretty low budget movie, like maybe between 6 and 10 million. I looked up different numbers, but it was not a very expensive movie for what they tried to do in terms of, like, you know, they bought some big production to it. Yeah. The effects were pretty decent for basically a comedy with sci-fi elements, as opposed to like a true sci-fi movie. But it's like watching some of the stuff now, I was like, man, I saw this movie when I was with my mom when I was like 7, and the stuff with like Ted's mom, or Bill's mom rather, especially, or Bill's stepmom Missy, and the dad, and they're like, he's like doing her in your room or whatever. I'm like, that's so unbelievably like really gross to me.
This is not a kid's movie at all.
No, not. But it is. It also is. It's weird. That's the weird thing about it.
I know.
And I think that the fact that it doesn't try to tread a line is why it works, because the jokes are just base enough that as a kid I wasn't, you know, the stuff that was over my head was over my head in a way that I wasn't offended, but the stuff that I got, like Napoleon learning how to bowl or go down a water slide or whatever wackiness was going on, that was just great. The whole scene at the mall I loved as a kid. Loved it. I still love Billy the Kid. He was my favorite probably character in the movie, and he doesn't really do anything. Watching it now, I'm like, not that I dislike him, but I'm like, why did I like Billy the Kid more? Now I love Deacon. He's my one for me.
I like Deacon a lot.
Kind of like a paternal figure to all the other characters. Like, he's throwing a football with Socrates, and he's kind of like, he goes with Socrates to the girls, and he's like, you know, trying to pick up on the girls, and they're like, oh, I like his sandals, and it's such a great moment.
When I think Billy the Kid, because I guess watching it now, like Billy, like he protects Bill and Ted. He becomes the protector because they helped him, they saved him, and that's it. Even though they created the scenario that got him in danger, he owes them. So he does, like, he's on their team from now on. And I think it reflects why Bill and Ted endure and why I love this movie still, even though it's kind of, you can see the cheapness in the production at times.
There's absolutely. 1000%.
Wonky editing things and stuff like that, but it pays off really well. But beyond that, the positivity of the characters, and this kind of segues, I guess, into Paul's original question, the character moments. For example, one that really worked for me is when they accidentally go to the future, like maybe midway through or like pretty early on, and it's cool because it's Clarence Clemens is one of the it's like they call them the three most important people in the world or something. It's like that council of future people, and then everyone comes out to greet Bill and Ted and be excellent. And it's the song that's playing, and it's this really dramatic moment that's kind of like it's not played silly. It's not played for laughs. And it's beautiful, and it still like kind of gets me every time. And that's what makes the movie work. There's a positivity to it that holds it together, that when there's stuff that doesn't make sense, like when Bill and Ted get captured in the medieval times and then all of a sudden they get rescued by Billy and Socrates, and there's no logic for how they were the executioners. Not that you necessarily need to know it in this kind of movie, but it's just like, it's them, yay! And as a kid, I'm like, yeah, it's them, they're saved. But now as a writer, I'm like, wait, but why are they the ones saving them? But then I'm like, you're overthinking this, Josiah. Yeah. Be excellent.
This movie was almost not made.
So it's like, it's one of those things where it's a different point of view where it definitely doesn't hold up as what I remember it being, but I still find joy in it. And I think that's why it's a movie that can live on. That when my kids are much older than when I first watch it, I'll let them watch it.
So the funny thing about this movie is I actually watch it on VHS, and then every once in a while I'll catch it on cable, but just different little parts of it. And it was a long time before I actually saw the whole thing, the whole movie in its entirety. But every time I watch it, I was like, that's a cool movie. What's this movie called? Like as I was a kid, and then finally I finally saw the whole thing in VHS. And I really enjoyed it. And over the years, like when it came out on DVD, I was like, "Oh my God, Bill and Ted!" And I'll buy it and I'll watch it. And now I have it like on Blu-ray on the Shout collection. But every time I revisit it, it's like you feel that sense of positivity. You go back to that time when you're a kid and you have that sense of nostalgia. I actually didn't see it in the theater, which I wish I did. I wish I saw Bill and Ted.
I wasn't born yet. Or wait, when did this come out? 89.
89.
Oh, 89. I was 1 year old.
You were just a fetus.
I was.
Yeah, but I did see Bogus Journey in the theater and really loved it. And actually, I remember seeing the trailer, and it's just them falling. And they're like, "Why are we yelling, dude? Why are we yelling when we're falling?" And I was like, "Oh, man, I gotta see this movie. This is amazing." And I love Bogus Journey. I think, for me, I love both of those movies so much. If I were to prefer one over the other, I'd prefer Excellent Adventure over Bogus Journey, because I feel like Bogus Journey at the third act kind of goes off the rails with Station, and like they kind of didn't know how to end it, I feel. But it's just my opinion. But I love Excellent Adventure so much, and I'm hoping sometime in the future we could revisit Bogus Journey.
Yeah, I'm down.
And actually get your impressions of it when
maybe we can do bonus Journey and then Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Yeah, I would love to do that.
I am legit excited because I did watch the Comic-Con panel and I absolutely loved it. I also do want to retract. Maybe I'm just grumpy and tired. I forgot that the 80s does have a lot of amazing comedies like Ruthless People, Monty Python, History World Part 1, and I didn't know the Airplane. I thought Airplane was in the 70s. Like I would have swore and bet money on Airplane being in the 70s. It was 1980. And then Arthur, my second favorite film of all time, is 1981, which I also thought was like 76. But so yeah, I just wanted to retract. And also, The Blues Brothers, which is one of the greatest films of all time as well, was on 1980. Oh, yeah. So
I love Blues Brothers.
There are plenty of amazing comedies. I am just grumpy. So I just wanted to call myself out.
Yeah, the most I think entertaining section of the movie is the mall scene, when they have a montage of all the different like Genghis Khan.
Genghis Khan is hilarious.
Sports sword like destroying the mannequin and like flipping over a cop, and then they have Beethoven. He's like playing on the piano, and I like when the salesman he presses that button and it plays that little musical hymn.
Yeah,
and like Beethoven has like this look of joy in his face.
It's like, this is magic.
But there's like, and the Joan of Arc, she does that aerobics class, and she's like really hyper, and like she pushes the instructor away.
Yeah.
So
I didn't quite understand that, but I also know that like that kind of like exercise and whatever was like really big in the 80s.
Yeah, like jazzercise. Yeah.
No, it totally was. Like that was a big thing. I know the aerobics type stuff was like a phenomenon at that time. Yeah. I remember my mom like doing that kind of thing. So
yeah, I just love how these little in jokes that really work so well to kind of highlight how like these characters kind of fish out of the water, and it's kind of fascinating to watch these characters like kind of out of their element. Like Abraham Lincoln was taking a picture with that with his hat on, and the guy's like, "Hey, give me the hat back. You're done with the picture." And then he's like, "This is my hat. I'm Abraham Lincoln. I don't know what you're talking about." And he pushes the guy and runs off, and it just like really cracks me up. So, out of all the characters, out of all the historical figures that are in the movie, which one do you feel is your favorite? That really,
I would say, I mean, like Billy the Kid and Socrates are the ones with the most like time, and like an understanding. 'Cause I don't think Beethoven really says a word until the end, and then yeah, Abraham Lincoln was just kind of like Abraham. He was just exactly how I would assume Abraham Lincoln was. Besides him screaming bloody murder, being like, "Why the fuck am I in the future? What's going on?" So I would say either like I would just say it's a tie between Socrates and Billy the Kid because they're the ones I care about the most. Like Napoleon was great, but I think Napoleon was only great because of like kind of bouncing off of Deacon until the end.
Mm-hmm.
Of like Deacon being really stoic and just kind of being like okay, and then like in Napoleon just like being way too angry.
okay, so Napoleon was great because I mean he had the advantage, I should say. Not that he was great, but he was great because in part he had the advantage of more time to do things, to sort of bounce off of different weird situations.
Yeah.
Whereas the other characters had less to do. So Billy the Kid and Socrates really stand out for similar reasons. For me, I would say it's Socrates because he's not speaking English, and it's much more like just kind of the way he moves his hands and his expressions are so intense with his face that a lot of it comes off. It's much more physical comedy without saying anything, or when he talks.
Yeah.
My favorite part of the movie is when Bill, or is it Ted? It's Ted that's translating for him in his speech, and he's like, "What do you think of San Dimas?" And then he like shakes the ground, and he's like, "It is excellent," or something. It's just like this great like the way, and then the crowd's like, "Oh right," like just the way that Keanu Reeves connects through that moment. It's so awesome through the physical performance of the actor that played. So great. It's just great.
Keanu Reeves did so well in this movie, and like I regret ever thinking that Keanu Reeves couldn't act, and I think it was mostly because of the existence of Bram Stoker's Dracula. But he's so good. Like honestly, him as Ted is so good. I just always feel like just going back and watching other things besides Bram Stoker's Dracula. Like I used to shit on him so much, and like especially now he's like one of my favorite actors and like one of my favorite people in the world now. Like just hearing more like all these stories about him and how he just treats people, and like the guy's amazing. And I just always regret like thinking ill of him. And yeah.
Yeah, I think he's held up so well, and he's so good in this role as Ted, and he just, John Wick, Matrix. I mean, there's so many movies throughout his career that are just like classics that are just really like, are part of the pulp culture consciousness. And so one thing I actually wanted to highlight, actually.
Oh, sorry. Can I say one more thing? I even recently watched Speed, which is. I never liked that film, and then I saw it recently, and I liked it so much more, and he's really good, but so is Sandra Bullock. Like, they're both actually, like, really good in that film, which is really weird, it being Speed. So I kind of want to say that. So
one thing I wanted to highlight with Keanu Reeves is that he's really great as Ted, and he's great as, Neo in The Matrix and, John Wick. There's so many iconic roles that he's been in throughout the decades, and he really has like aged well. And the thing that is striking to me is I was watching the bonus features, and they had Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter, and they had this great rapport with each other. They were like Bill and Ted, in real life, that they just like really bounced off well of each other. And I was doing some research, and I discovered that they actually were discovered outside of a McDonald's in Tempe, Arizona, and they actually auditioned for the part. They were paired together. And Chris Mathis and Ed Solomon, they initially they originated the character and they actually played the character on stage, but they were out, going to McDonald's or whatever, and they saw Keanu and Alex, and they saw them and they're like, wow, that's Bill and Ted. I hope they're in the movie. I hope they auditioned. And so I just love that rapport that they have with each other. It translates so well in the movie, and then it also continues to this day, seeing it in the special features. So it really gives a lot of hope for Bill and Ted Face the Music when that comes.
Which,
out.
By the way, does involve the original writers. So Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon are back as well. So they're writing the new movie as well. Yeah, and like you said, it was interesting because they basically performed those characters of Bill and Ted as a stand-up routine. That was when they were in college. That's where it started. And I kind of felt watching the end of this movie, that whole bit with the historical figures, you could just see that as a stand-up act without the sort of fancy production values, but sort of the same beats and the same jokes. It would totally work where you take turns where one of them stays in character as Bill or Ted, and then the other one would maybe play the part of of Genghis Khan running around the stage like a crazy person or what have you. And you just you could totally have those jokes play in that way. It shows you it's just funny. That part's just funny. I love that part of the movie for sure. The payoff is just so excellent. It works really, really well.
Yeah, I agree.
Initially, that scene was going to be in the classroom, and they filmed the whole scene in the classroom, and they realized that it didn't work because they were isolating each of the characters. Each character had its own segment, and Bill and Ted weren't really involved. So they went back to the studio and said, hey, this is not going to work. We need to reshoot this. So they reshot it and included Bill and Ted, and had, they wanted to give it more, they wanted to, blow it up a little bit more and have the lighting arrangement and have it more of a spectacle. And so, they came up with that production. And one thing that really I thought was pretty funny is when Freud was psychoanalyzing Ted, he says everything about his dad, how his dad is projecting onto him. And then he goes to Bill and said, hey, do you want to sit down and do you want me to analyze you? And he's like, no, I just have a minor
I'm a minor Oedipus complex.
I love that. It's like, I love that joke. But also, it's a nice reference to Back to the Future, the first one.
Wait, is it a reference?
I think it's, I see what you're saying. I didn't see it as a reference until Paul mentioned it as a reference, but yeah, just as a joke on its own. Yeah. But also, originally, they were going to have a van, Bill and Ted. It was going to be Bill and Ted's time van.
Really?
And because of Back to the Future and the whole car thing, they needed a different vehicle to transport them through time, and they came up with a phone booth, which is kind of funny now because I worked on a production in the mid 2000s for a film, for a short film, and we couldn't find then a phone booth in Los Angeles that was just available without renting one off a studio. We could not just find one that physically still existed, and that was almost 15 years ago. So that tells you something. I mean, finding a phone booth, it's just funny, but that was why they changed the time from the van because of the DeLorean. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was sort of a double layered joke there, as Paul mentioned.
That definitely makes sense.
And the funny thing about that is, in a way, it's kind of a nod to the police box from Doctor Who. And so it kind of invites a little bit of
totally.
I
think that from what I understand, that was intentional.
Oh, it was? Okay, I was gonna say I wonder on that front because that is pretty on the nose with that, and yeah, interesting. I'm sure the BBC would have said something had they thought that this movie was actually going to be released. I bet you anything after it got released, they're damn it. We didn't think this would be released. We didn't do anything about it.
So one set piece that really cracks me up is when they're in the time circuits and they're all in the phone booth it's a canoe, and they're whoa, riding a wave. And every time I see that, it's just I have this huge grin on my face just seeing them on this in the phone booth like a canoe, and they're all stuffed in there. Just
all of and there's a lack of logic to it because they're it's just their upper bodies, but where are their legs? It's and when they go in, they walk out the door, which doesn't matter, but that's part of the fun of the movie that they just this is what it does. It works this way. So I want to tell one other sort of personal story that relates to this movie that I just thought of. So the big, speech part, there's that one guy who's like, San Dimas high school football rules, and he shouts and everybody like goes crazy, right? Famous moment, of course, like just that's like the most, I think maybe the most iconic part of the movie for me, but I'll just explain why. So when I was a junior in high school, I ran for junior class president. And I did want to win and I wanted to do a good job, but I don't think people took me seriously. And it's because my speech was basically just all jokes and references to things, like everything you could imagine, including that line where I shouted that. And that's like definitely out of character. And basically, like, I had made sure my friends would like cheer like crazy when no one else got the joke. So like 10 people were like, yeah, everybody else was just quiet for that.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, so weirdly, just a few months ago, the guy that beat me for that election was elected in Pennsylvania as to the Pennsylvania House of Representatives.
Jesus.
Or something.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
so weirdness. But
That is...
so I'll always, I told him, I said, you're starting politics. I wouldn't put myself politically anywhere in the world near him, but I think he's a good person.
That's
so
good.
I'll just leave it at that.
So one thing I wanted to highlight, and I would be remiss in my duties if I didn't bring this up, is George Carlin. I feel that he brought so much gravitas to the role, and even though he had a couple minutes, and it really kind of grounded the film.
I was gonna say he really wasn't in the movie all that much. He didn't really impact me at all while watching this.
All right. So what do you think about George Carlin's performance that worked for you?
I want to say real quick, just based on what Tyler said. Yeah, you know what's funny? I had it more. My memory of it was much bigger. He did much more. He was all over the movie, but he really wasn't. And it almost surprised me watching it again for the first time in such a long time that he was barely in it.
Yeah, I like seeing him in it. However, I think anybody could have done that role. Like,
oh wow,
it's sad to say. I don't think Rufus is that, strong of a character. I think that George Carlin probably made him a little bit more. I think George Carlin did a great job for us to kind of like, gravitate towards him. But I just think that that's just how George Carlin is or was as a person. He was just one of those people that was just so
he's just like a magnetic personality.
He's
just
so good with
instantly likable.
Yeah, he's so good with words, and so
instantly cool. He's just a cool guy, and the thing, it's funny because even though he didn't I was surprised how little of the screen time he did have, but I feel like his presence kind of grounded the movie so that it kind of didn't spiral off into absurdity. Like it really kind of grounded everything together, and I think he just worked so well with Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter. Like they have a great rapport with each other, and he has a presence akin to maybe like Darth Vader, where he doesn't have much screen time in A New Hope, but he like really kind of grounds the film and really kind of gives that gravitas to the movie. And so I really appreciate George Carlin, and in fact, one of the things that I felt was a problem with the second one is that I don't feel he was really highlighted that much in Boga's journey. He wasn't as integral to the plot. Like he didn't guide them as much as he did in Excellent Adventure. But I mean, do you think anybody else could have done that role or maybe done it better?
I actually agree with Tyler. I don't think he did anything exceptional. It's just I think part of why it works in retrospect is that it is George Carlin. That it's like, whoa, that's George Carlin in that role. That's why it works. But in terms of he doesn't do anything particularly special with the character. There's nothing really there. He's their guide, but he's really the audience's guide to sort of ground the movie and sort of he's a through line for the audience to understand that part of it. But he also why the character why he works functionally is he sort of then allows for the world, that weird future world and the premise of the time travel to sort of be believable because he takes it seriously, but not too seriously. So he just has that right level of charm. And maybe that's what he does, and credit to George Carlin there. But I don't think and it's in part just because there's the nature of the role and the screen time. There's not much for him to do with it beyond that. He does a good job with it. But like I said, at the same time, I remember him much bigger in this movie in my head than he was. So now I would say like I could not definitely see like Sean Connery or somebody like some bigger name, but it's not necessarily it wouldn't have worked if it was just like someone you don't recognize in that role.
Yeah.
It's got to be someone you know. and someone older.
There's a couple actors that I could definitely see around that time. Like Bobcat Goldthwait would have been fine, and Sam Kinison would have been awesome. Like there are other actors that, especially around that time, would have been good too. Like even. Bill Murray at that time too would have been pretty good. Chevy Chase, maybe. If somebody actually wanted to work with that douchebag.
I think those guys at that time were a little too young, though. That's the problem. Like
Bobcat Goldthwait was like
older than,
Bobcat's like in his 70s now, 60s, 70s now, isn't he? Or 60s? How old is Bobcat Goldthwait now?
But George Carlin was like what at that time? So he would have been born in like the late 30s, early 40s, probably, right?
Yeah, he's Bobcat's almost 60.
How old would he have been then? He would have been
almost like 50.
Almost 50. So I think those other guys are probably just a tad too young, or at least appeared too young.
I mean, I don't think the character needed to be old.
No, but he by sort of appearing to be that older person, he's the wise old sage. You know what I mean? It's not old, but I guess in Bill and Ted's world, of course, if Bill Murray played that part, even at that time, in Bill and Ted's world, he's an old man. Even though he would have been even though Bill Murray might have been my age at that point, you know what I mean? He might have been in his late 30s. I don't know exactly.
I would have much rather
like a 17-year-old. He's grandpa.
Yeah, I would have much rather seen Sam Kinison in that role because Sam Kinison was really big into the rock and roll scene.
I think the thing with the other act like Sam Kinison or Bobcat Goldthwait is they wouldn't know to kind of tone it down a little bit. Like their personalities would kind of overwhelm the movie. And then it would become about them more so than Bill and Ted. I feel George Carlin is able to kind of tone it down a little bit and make it he makes it known that he's not the center of the story. It's really Bill and Ted's story. And so he kind of tones it down and kind of is that sagely character. So it's like I look at the way
I've never seen any movie where Bobcat Goldthwait tried to steal the scene from anybody. I don't think I've ever seen a movie with him doing that.
I mean, he has a persona that I just don't think would have really fit with the movie. I think it would kind of
I think he's the worst possible example of someone to be in that position. Sam Kinison, I like actually. I'll say that, but Bobcat Goldthwait,
I think Bobcat.
Sam Kinison,
I don't think they would have wanted him to be that persona because again, in the other movies like Scrooged and the other ones that he was in, they told him to do that voice. I'm sure in this movie they were just like, "Can you just play yourself?" He would have been himself because he's not like that in real life. He talks very normally.
But I think Paul's kind of was getting at his persona more than anything else,
true.
and part of his persona is so over the top that if you have him not doing that in the movie, what's the value? In a weird way, what's the value of having him in that movie? So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think he would have worked because you gotta you want to play off who he is off stage, and that's why the George Carlin casting does work because it does play off who he is because he has this in his stand-up. He gets to these crazy moments, but it's through this sort of steadiness, this thoughtfulness that then he gets to this sometimes crazy punchline, and that's why it worked. And he just kind of just has that steadiness, and the crazy punchline here it plays out differently than his stand-up, but it's essentially the same sort of temperament that comes with it. So
that makes sense.
So I'm wondering, what is it about this movie?
I do like the Sam Kinison idea, though. I would like to see that.
That would have been awesome.
So sorry. Now I'm I'm just imagining
music yet, so maybe that's. Oh wait, no, he's dead. Never mind.
He's been dead. He might have been dead when this came out. For all I know,
I think he was probably dead before George Carlin was. I think George Carlin passed 5 years ago.
George
right?
Carlin passed away in 2008.
2008. Oh, okay. Man.
But Sam Kinison was in the early 90s.
Sam Kinison died in I was right, 1992. He was I know this for a fact. He was driving home from rehab and he got hit by a truck.
Oh, that's awful.
Very depressing.
I have to say, when I'm watching this movie, I really miss George Carlin because I think he would have been great commenting about the current times. I think he would have really done well during this current times of what's going on outside of this podcast. I would really like to hear his point of view.
Wait, there's a world outside of this podcast?
I don't think that's not true. That can't be right.
I don't believe it.
That can't be right.
This is the world for everyone, everywhere.
There is, right? I'm wondering, what do you think about this movie that has held up all this time? It came out in '89, and we're actually getting a sequel, Face the Music, pretty soon. So what what has made it endure for so long?
Honestly,
in your opinion,
I don't know what it is, but I would say this is a very timeless film. I don't know. I think it's because it is just. I don't know, honestly. Like it's like this and Back to the Future 1. I will not say 2 and 3 because I still do not like 2. I never liked 2 and 3 before, and I still don't like Back to the Future 2 and 3 today. I don't understand the love for it, but I don't know what it is about this film, but it holds up and it still feels fresh. I think it's maybe because there's no other movie that's like it. You know, that's at least good in quality like this one. Like, yeah, like what Josiah said. It's a very cheap film. And editing, it has some editing problems, it has some also other things as well. But again, it is about two guys traveling through time to get an A on something. And so, and that's the plot of this film. It's not like Ferris Bueller's Day Off where there's like 1,000 things happening. Like, oh, he's skipping school. And then the car goes away, and then they find themselves in a parade, and then the principal is trying to get at him as well, and it's like Ferris Bueller to me there's just too much stuff going around that I just don't care anymore, and like the only character I like is the best friend that has a breakdown because he's the only one that I actually have any relatability to at all in the movie because like he has emotions, and Ferris Bueller is just too cool and not realistic at all. I think with this film, where unlike a lot of other 80s movies, I would say, like even ones I love, like Ruthless People, this one it's a movie about two young guys going through time with people that we all know who they are, no matter what, because we all get taught these people, or they're just kind of prevalent always. Like everybody knows who Billy the Kid is because he's always pops up in weird movies. Like doesn't even pop up in Green Mile for some reason, and like I don't know. I think that's what it is. It's just there's characters that we know from the history. It's the characters themselves are like really relatable. Like yeah, they're really, really stupid and dim-witted, but they have like relatable like emotions, I guess, and like how I don't know, and it's just so wacky that you just kind of turn your brain off and you just have fun with it. And that's it.
I think just jumping on the same thing, I think it's simple for me. I think it's just so... First, you have really, really likable characters, really unbelievably likable characters, and it's just such a positive movie. It's really uplifting.
Yeah.
It's just positive. They're positive throughout. Like, even when they hit the bumps in the road, they're still generally positive. And I think that just works. They're positive. It's not cynical either. It's very different, especially for like the 80s, because this is kind of an 80s sci-fi movie, even though it's much more comedy than sci-fi, but it is an 80s sci-fi movie. And a lot of 80s sci-fi movies, as great as they are, they're heavy stuff. It's really the Blade Runners and things like that.
I think, I just think this movie's like a lightning in a bottle kind of situation. Just everything worked out right. And I kind of disagree. I think the editing was really great, how it takes the time travel set pieces and it intersperses with, Deacon and Napoleon, and they ditch Napoleon. And the pacing is really good.
But there's actually, Paul, just to interrupt, there's actually functionally bad editing at points.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say
certain
too.
Scenes.
Yeah, like
it's not like the pacing
shots.
of that. Yeah, there's like editing mistake, and I think it's just because they couldn't fix certain things, particularly early in the film. So it's not that the pacing of the story isn't good in terms of editing, but it's like there's functionally bad editing in it. Because I think they probably couldn't do reshoots or kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean they didn't have much of a budget, and a lot of times through the production they were saying, oh, this is not going to make it to theaters. Like, don't worry about it. Like I was watching the bonus features and they could mention that a lot. Like, yeah, don't worry, it's not going to make it. It's not going to make it in the theaters. So I just think the Bill and Ted, there's like a sincerity there and a camaraderie with the both of them that is, like Josiah said, it's very unusual. It's something that's very unique and timeless. And it's just a fun movie, a very positive movie, and it's something that you could revisit it at any time of the day or at any moment, and you'd really enjoy it. It really holds up very well because it's so, it's so breezy. It's just 90 minutes, and you go on this great adventure.
It's not even. It's actually less than 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's like 90 minutes with credits, right?
No, it's 5 minutes of credits, and it was at least on Amazon. Mine was at an hour and 28 minutes, and it had 5 minutes of credits.
There you go.
Yeah. So, I mean, I just think it's one of those movies that just works so well, even though there's editing mistakes, like functionally in the beginning.
Yeah,
no, but we weren't like. I think Tyler and I both were not trying to diss the movie. We're trying to say that tells you how the movie holds up, because like they were against their limitations and they overcame those limitations. That's what I think is why this movie is awesome. It overcame those things, because a lesser movie would have been destroyed by maybe those kind of errors. And they're not like rampant through the film, but there's some that are like, oh, geez, that's a bad cut. Like, yeah. That's like there's a shot missing or something there, kind of thing.
So, as we're about to wrap up, I just wanted to point out one thing that kind of cracked me up is when they get Genghis Khan, they're like luring him with a Twinkie, but right before that, he like, grabs a girl and is like making out with her or whatever, and then they lure him with a Twinkie and he goes in the phone booth. So I was watching a Patton Oswalt stand up, and he did one of those DNA tests or whatever, and he was thinking like, and he saw the test and he went to the guy and he's like, how come I'm part Mongolian? Like, why is that? And he found out that he's actually related to Genghis Khan.
Because he fucked everything.
And they're like, yeah, don't, like, there's millions of people related to Genghis Khan. He just went around. He was just that kind of guy. So that scene kind of just reminded me of that, and it just cracked me up. In closing, do you guys have any final thoughts about this movie? Anything else that you wanted to bring up?
I actually I'm going to wait for Face the Music, and then I'm going to hope that they're going to have a Blu-ray box set, remastered and everything. I actually really do want to watch. I think I want to watch Boga's Adventure and Face the Music at the same time. Like, just do like a especially since death is in both films. So, yeah.
Cool. How about you, Josiah? Any final thoughts?
Kind of going off on the last thing we said, I'm looking at my notes, and the last thing I wrote is it holds up because of the positivity. And I
agree with you.
It just does. That's the biggest thing when I really think about it. That's what works the most. And some jokes that land and some good characters and great chemistry, but just the positivity. And I remember when we picked this movie, my sort of stipulation was something that's positive or something to that effect. And this movie, Paul picked it and perfectly hit that note for me. So
yeah,
nice.
I definitely needed it. I've been stressed out as hell lately, so I needed something fun like this. And I'm really glad we went with this, because we almost went with the Muppet movie. We almost went with Muppet Christmas Carol.
And those movies are all so depressing and dark.
I know.
They're part of the dark universe.
That's right.
The Mummy, the Tom Cruise Mummy, and all.
I will say Muppets from Space got really dark after a while, because like Gonzo was like so depressed and like actually depressed, and it made me kind of be like, oh man, he is alone. Am I alone? Like, do I feel like him? And like I'm
like you're supposed to be a Muppets movie. Stop being so heavy on me.
I love Muppets from Space. It's so underrated.
So the main reason why I picked this movie is because it has a really great message behind it, and it's be excellent to each other.
Yeah.
And that's something that's sorely lacking nowadays. I feel like everybody's kind of angry and, frustrated, and, they want to attack everybody over many different things. It's just like a very toxic world that we live in right nowadays. And I think we all kind of need to give each other some slack and to have a little bit of understanding and empathy for each other. So, be excellent to each other. It's just something that really resonates with me, and it's something that I've been trying to live by throughout this crazy year that we live in. I love how the movie, or the presentation ends with Abraham Lincoln saying, "Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes," as he looks right into the camera.
I like that. I actually have one last thing I forgot to say earlier, because I don't know if this is gonna sting you guys. I absolutely hate Wayne's World. I both films. It's like I would rather watch paint dry than watch those films. And I think the other thing as to why I never wanted to watch this film was because I thought this was going to be so much like Wayne's World, because of like the whole rock and roll aspect of it and like the cult following and everything like that. And I'm very, very pleasantly surprised that it was not anything like Wayne's World.
Good. So yeah, that's about wraps it up. Do you guys want to plug anything before we close?
I'll go and get myself out of the way here. You can find me, Josiah is Right, WRITE, on YouTube, which I'm going to start uploading new videos because I now have facilities to do so. I've been on a hiatus. And on Instagram, Josiah is Right, WRITE, is a writer. And Instagram is mostly pictures of my dog and my kids, but YouTube also features my dog and kids, but a lot of geek stuff too. So check it out.
You can actually find me on Instagram as Arcade Blackfire, and Blackfire with a Y. So Arcade and then Blackfire.
What does that mean? I've actually been meaning to ask you what Arcade Blackfire is.
It's super nerdy. So it's one of my favorite band is Arcade Fire.
Oh.
And Blackfire is actually the Targaryen bastards in Game of Thrones or the Song of Fire and Ice. They're part of. There's the Blackfire Rebellion, and they're trying to overthrow. Because this is so nerdy, and I hope you edit this out.
No, I won't. Don't worry.
It's a Targaryen. Like there's a one of the kings, one of the Targaryens. I think it was an Aegon Targaryen, and he actually legitimized all his bastards. And so there's those bastards form their own like empires, like Blackfire. And so every once in a while in Westeros history, there's a Blackfire rebellion, and one of them actually, like the fourth one, was in the Night of the Seven Kingdoms, which is the precursor to the Game of Thrones. So that's where I kind of mixed the two of them. So Arcade Blackfire.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there you go. And I'm a huge nerd. I've been outed as a huge.
You do know what the network is called that this podcast is on, right?
Oh, I know. So
what? You're geeks? What? Oh,
no geek shit on my website, sir. No, I was kidding.
I know I hide it so well, but yeah. I just want to say thank you guys for joining us.
Of course.
Today, and
thanks for listening in, everybody. You can check out our website at thegrandgeekgathering.com for our articles, our videos, our other podcasts, and so much more. You can follow us on all the social media. All of our podcasts, all 8 shows are available in all podcast apps. Please subscribe and please review if you can. The music has been provided by Carlisle Laurent. Thank you, two, for being here so much. Check out Josiah is Right, and go follow Arcade Blackfire. And you guys wear a mask. Have a great week, and GGG.
What's on the silver screen? I got some takes you wouldn't believe. Popmosis Film. Grand Geek Gathering.